Okay. Hi, everybody. My name's Sandy Beach, and I'm an alcoholic. How you all doing? Welcome back, everybody. If you're here for the first time, the point of this meeting is to have fun. And that's what we're going to do for the next 50 minutes or so. Totally informal. If you want to get coffee or cake or anything during the meeting, just walk back and get it. You got to go to the bathroom, just go head out over here. And we're just here to have a good time. We're on step 5 tonight, and this is almost like a quiz that I'll give every week. And so, what does step 5 have to do with? God. Okay, that'll be the answer to step 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. That's what they all have to do with, because we really need that. If we're alcoholics, it's the only way out of this mess. Our friend Jamie was kind enough to make 50 more copies of that 4th step sheets that we passed out last week. So they'll be up here. There was a lot of people that were asking about those. Just come up after the meeting and take one of those. It's a great little worksheet, and I think you'll find it'll add a lot to your perspective on being able to do this. The other thing was that I had some people come up and they said, well, we've been listening to you for the last 3 or 4 weeks, but we've never heard your story, so we don't really know who you are or what you're talking about. And so we don't have time for me to tell my story tonight, but I did bring some slides. And so, Dan, if you'll turn that, okay, good. And this will only take 2 or 3 minutes, and this will give you just a quick rundown, okay? This is a shot of me before I became an alcoholic. And I have very clear eyes. I look like a very nice person, and you'll notice that other people stand real near me. Here's a shot a couple years later after I've been an alcoholic for a while. You can see a profound personality change. My eyes are missing. And there's no one within 25 feet of me. Here's a shot of me taking my first drink. It's very unusual that you actually have a photograph of that. Here's a shot of me losing my first drink. And for those of you that are not alcoholics, when I say I've lost a drink, I don't mean I don't know where it is. I mean I no longer have possession of it. Okay. Here's a shot of me throwing up in prep school. Here's a shot of me throwing up at the university. Here's a shot of me after I became a fighter pilot in the Marine Corps, throwing up in an oxygen mask. That is something you do not want to do. This is very exciting. In 1957, I got my first brand new car. And this is me at the dealer getting the car. Here's a shot of me driving off in my brand new car. Here's a shot of me picking up a hitchhiker in my brand new car. Here's a shot of the hitchhiker sticking me up in my brand new car. Here's a shot of the hitchhiker driving off in my brand new car. Here's a shot of me hitchhiking. Here's a shot of the hitchhiker picking me up in my brand new car. Luckily, she didn't recognize me. Here's a shot of my 6 children turning their back on me. Here's a shot of my wife turning her back on me. Here's a shot of my mother and father turning their back on me. Here's a shot of me in front of a mirror turning my own back on me. Here's a shot of the Marine Corps turning its back on me. Here's a shot of me having a grand mal seizure followed by the DTs and 6 months in the nut ward, the slide didn't come out too well because I bit the camera. And these are just shots of me at various AA meetings as I'm getting more sober and happy and having a wonderful... Oh, my God. That's a shot of the Frankenstein monster trying to kill me. Oh, no. That's my sponsor helping me with my... helping me with my fourth step. That's all the slides we have, but I hope that'll give you just a little... so you don't think I'm an imposter. Last week we were talking about some of the history, and there's one thing I wanted to get to mention, and that had to do with John D. Rockefeller when he gave that dinner for all the for AA. And I really wanted to get the point across that what he did was worth more than the millions he could have given, which would have ruined the fellowship. By holding that dinner and having all the world's leading newspapers write the story about Alcoholics Anonymous, even though some of the newspapers were making fun of Rockefeller for hanging around with drunks, what he did was to break the stigma of alcoholism and give legitimacy to Alcoholics Anonymous and make it socially acceptable. It was a huge step forward in having, AA coming of age, as Bill writes in the AA history book. So I just wanted to get that point across. Before I get to the fifth step or get to the steps, I'm just going to talk a little more. This will be the last time on the history and the traditions real fast. And then the following weeks we'll review the steps from before and take on the new one. But since there's only 4, this gives me time to do other things. From the time that the Jack Alexander article appeared in the Saturday Evening Post, the AA just started mushrooming. The Wilsons finally came out of poverty and were able to get back into a home in Bedford Hills. And Bill spent a lot of time in the 40s traveling around to AA, which had grown all the way across the country. And there was AA out in California, but nobody had ever seen Bill Wilson. So he felt it was real important that he personally go around. So he went to all these various groups just to talk to them, tell them about how AA got started and get feedback from them about how everything was going as he went all around the country. And it was in the traveling around the country that he started hearing where troubles would happen with a clubhouse. And then this happened, and the AA members all got upset, and they stormed out, and they weren't talking to each other. And then this happened, and they ended up with $10,000 in the treasury, and the treasurer took it and ran off to Las Vegas, and they haven't seen him since. And there was just all this. And what he was collecting was the growing pains of Alcoholics Anonymous as a fellowship. And this is what inspired him to sit back and contemplate our traditions. He said, boy, we're going to have this kind of a problem, we're going to have that kind of a problem. And so he started putting these ideas together about what would be the best guiding principles for the fellowship itself to live by. And he assembled those in the middle to late 40s and started publishing them in the Grapevine, our magazine, and he would put out one a month and have an editorial, and he'd explain to the alcoholics what he was doing. And he knew it was wonderful that he ended up calling them traditions, because if he had called them rules, or if he had called them bylaws, you know how us drunks would have reacted to that. Rules? We don't need that. And that's why the steps are the steps and not the 10 commandments. Or the 12 commandments, of sobriety. Thou shalt admit you're powerless over alcohol. Nobody ever would have stayed here. So it was just great that he ended up with the word tradition as guiding principles. And these were adopted at AA's first international conference in Cleveland in 1950. So the traditions have been around since 1950. And I just wanted to, because there's a lot of new people here tonight, and I just want to touch on some of them so you'll understand what we're talking about when we say our traditions. starts out talking about our common welfare has to come first, that AA unity. And so we have to put the fellowship or the group that you belong to ahead of your own personal interest, or there won't be a group for you to go to. And AA treats the individual with kid gloves. And the funny thing is, I think us alcoholics know that without anybody telling us, that we can only carry on just so far at these meetings, the way we used to at any other social event. Or it may disrupt it, and then if it isn't around, we ain't going to be around. And so we're willing to put ourselves almost second to the fellowship so that it will continue going so that we have some place to go. One ultimate authority, a loving God. So when the groups are trying to figure out what policies they should adopt and making a decision about things, what we try to do is step back, get unangry, stop some of the squabbling, pray about it, and go, what would a higher power do in something like this? And we come up with much more loving solutions to problems, and we try to not have it be a contest where I'm going to get my way, and this group over here wants decaf, and I don't want decaf, and I'm going to exert my will and force them to be wrong. You know how we normally are? And what this is saying is we got to put that aside. What do you think God would say? Well, I guess decaf would be all right. You know what I'm saying? And so we come up with a much more flexible way of looking at things. Only requirement for membership, desire to stop drinking. It's the only organization in the world with no membership requirements. The only one. And it's the only organization I've ever heard of where the person decides if they're a member, not the group. Group has no say in whether you decide you're an AA member or not. You stay. You could be a non-alcoholic and fake it and just come in here and go, hi, I'm an alcoholic, and I'm going to write a book someday, and I just want to improve my resume, and I'm just going to hang in all these meetings and have a spiritual awakening that I don't even need. Each group should be autonomous, which means if you're starting a group, you could have one with 12 speakers that lasted 51 minutes, and that would be fine. Or you could have one that lasted 6 hours and no speakers and 6 topics and 4 breaks. Anything you want. Each group is autonomous. Group in Richmond, I don't know if I told this group, but group in Richmond decided to serve beer at the meeting. Because beer was considered not alcohol. It was something that was free. When you ordered whiskey, you want wine or beer with it, and so they didn't think it was really drinking. And AA headquarters and the other groups in the area couldn't do anything about it because the group was autonomous. Now it's suggested that if it's going to affect AA as a whole, that you're going to get a letter from General Service saying, we think this is not a good thing for the reputation of AA, but there's no one can tell the group to not do it. So they might, if they choose, they could keep right on going. And on that particular group, the idea wasn't a very good one, so it didn't last long. And people forgot where the meeting was and all that. Each group has but one primary purpose, to carry the message to the alcoholic. And the primary purpose is where we come down that if we have 7 other problems, like I look at myself and I've got a lot of other burdens besides alcoholism. I'm a very thin, white, heterosexual male Republican. Whoa! You don't think it's rough with those things to walk around with. But I don't bring them up at meetings because our primary purpose is to stay sober and to help the next alcoholic. So that's when we say, if we have a million other problems, that we have them. Talk about them to our sponsors, do whatever we want. But in AA, we focus all of our energy on the alcoholic, the next alcoholic that comes in. And so that's why our message should be mainly about our alcoholism. If you attempted suicide when you were 6, nobody's going to say, well, leave suicide out because that's not alcoholism. You know what I'm saying? We use common sense, but try to imagine that the person you're talking to is a brand new alcoholic at his or her first AA meeting, and if they don't hear about alcohol, they may not stay. And that's the point of our primary purpose. And that's the main tradition that has to do with talking about other things than alcohol. We ought to not endorse or lend the AA name to outside enterprises. The distilleries and some of those thought it would be cool to get AA to endorse Schenley's. You know what I mean? Like, AA members always loved Schenley's, and somehow it would help their thing, and then they would give AA money and all that, and they just go, no way, we don't want to be connected with anything. So even the clubs that AA members start are not AA. They have to form an outside organization. The organization is filled with AA members, but the club is not AA, so that if something happens in the club, AA can't be blamed for it, and it's not endorsed, but we have them all over the country. Fully self-supporting, declining outside contributions. That was another thing that outside observers of the fellowship find it very difficult to believe, that we refuse to accept money, because Bill realized, and not just Bill, a lot of AA members, that money has caused a lot of problems for a lot of groups of people. You let it accumulate, and you accept it. Like if you rent a hall from a church, and they say, hey, you don't have to pay any rent. We love AA. Just come here out of the goodness of our heart. Please accept our hospitality. We'll even make some coffee for you. It's a very tempting offer. But the next thing, they're down there and they're going, look, since we're giving you the hall free, we'd like you to make these announcements about our church to your group. You know what I mean? There's a little leverage that is exerted, and that's mixing religion with AA. So we go and they say, no thanks, we don't want to accept anything free. We're going to pay. Wherever we go, we're paying our own way, and then we keep our own independence. And people die, and they're millionaires, and they want to give AA their money. And AA won't accept it. I forget, I think it's $3,000 is the maximum amount that AA, $2,000, thanks, that AA will accept. And it's just to honor that principle, that we're self-supporting, and we can now continue on our own. And Bill was able to do that with John D. Rockefeller. I think I mentioned they solicited the mailing list from that dinner, all the bankers and everything, for about 4 years, and then they were self-supporting. The income was coming into the book, and Bill wrote a letter, called John D. and said, we will no longer accept any money. We agree with your assessment that we want to be self-supporting. Forever non-professional. In other words, we don't want, Bill, you remember in the beginning, he wanted to have paid missionaries to go out. And 12-step work is done from the heart, and that's why it works. So 12-step work is done for nothing. We have non-professionals. But we have professionals. We can have central office people. We got the general service people. We can hire people to make the coffee at meetings, all kinds of things. But 12-step work is done from the heart. AA should never be organized. Who ever heard of such guidelines? Okay, we have this huge organization worldwide, 2 million members, 100,000 groups, blah, 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 120 countries. First thing, we want no organization whatsoever. We want no one in charge. We want, what a strange thing to have, but that's what it is. There's no one in charge of anyone. But we have service positions, and that's the way it's looked at. There's service at the group level and the central office level and the district level, all the way up to the central office, general service office in New York, and everything is designed to just provide service to AA members, literature, letters, organize conferences, and all of that. Alcoholics Anonymous, this is the most amazing one, 10. Alcoholics Anonymous has no opinion on outside issues. No opinion. Can you believe that? Look at us. Think of the people in this room, and we have no opinion on outside issues. But it keeps us out of controversy. The Washingtonian movement took a position on slavery and temperance, so it got political, and pretty soon the room was divided. The alcoholics in favor of temperance, and the alcoholics not in favor of temperance. And then we're having fights, and pretty soon we're diverted from our primary purpose, and we fall apart as an organization. So this is a wonderful thing, no opinion. And as a little anecdote, in the 70s, I was working in Washington as a lobbyist, and there was a bill introduced on the Senate Health and Human Services Committee for warning labels on alcohol, like cigarettes. And they were trying to get experts to come in and discuss whether this was a good idea or not. And one of the committee staff said, man, do I know who you ought to get. Alcoholics Anonymous. Who could give us better feedback than AA about warning labels on bottles? So they contacted AA, and they sent down somebody from New York. They said, geez, thank you for coming down. We want to know what AA thinks about warning labels. They said, "Sir, we're glad to be here. AA has no opinion whatsoever on putting warning labels on bottles," which astounded all the senators, but that is the official record, that AA has no opinion. And then they explained it, and then they understood, but it was quite amazing. That does not mean that you and I as individuals can't have opinions on these things, and I have an opinion on warning labels on alcohol, and I'm going to share it with you tonight. After considerable thought, I believe there should be warning labels on alcohol, because I think if properly worded, it could actually do some good, unlike the warning labels on cigarettes. And I'll tell you exactly what a warning label on a bottle of booze ought to say. It ought to say, "Warning, this bottle may run out." You should consider buying 2. And just think of people driving drunk back to get another bottle. We might save their lives. I mean, we could possibly do some good there. Then the last 2 traditions have to do with anonymity. We start out with the first. For the sake of the fellowship, we just don't want to have our anonymity broken at the level of press, radio, and television. That's the only place that anonymity is talked about. So I can use my name if I'm talking to a school group about AA. I can stand up on the stage with the students out there and go, "My name is Sandy Beach, and I'm a member of Alcoholics Anonymous, and I haven't broken my anonymity." Because it's level of press, radio, and television. That's it. Below that, you're free to talk your name and say AA anywhere you want. Now, we respect each other's. I don't stand up in that same school thing and say, "I know Dan blah, 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 and he works out at the trucking place, and he's an alcoholic." I don't do that. But I'm free to disclose that. The level of press, radio, and television, the reason there are films, now television, that they didn't want to do that was that people were breaking their anonymity who were celebrity types, and then they were getting drunk. And that was getting in the paper. And so you're getting a story that says, "AA member, famous movie star, baseball player, whatever it is, now drunk." So now you got a potential alcoholic, and he's thinking about going to AA, and he goes, "Why should I go to AA? All they do is get drunk again." So it was the idea of saving the reputation of AA so that it would be a beacon of hope instead of I don't think I really want to go there. But the last tradition on anonymity, spiritual foundation, came out of that. The original thing with anonymity was they were worried about there being too many people for the few alcoholics to be able to serve. So they wanted to hide their names, and they could control how many phone calls they got. Well, it didn't turn out that was a problem, but that's what they thought, and so that's where it came. Alcoholics Anonymous. We're going to stay anonymous so that we can control how many people we go out and see. But as it evolved, Bill saw the tremendous value in being anonymous, the tremendous spiritual value. Because instead of being Jane Smith, graduate of Vassar University, mother of 3, daughter of the American Revolution, New York Society, coming out party 1982, boop, 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 3 perfect children, she is suddenly, "Hi, I'm Jane, I'm an alcoholic." And all that identity, which is all ego identity, is gone. And when we're free from that, I mean, it's a tremendous freedom to just be, "Hey, I'm just Jane. I'm an alcoholic. That's all I am." And it just is a wonderful reversal, and it's a very great spiritual principle when you think about it. Who are you? And if we can have our own mind respond back to the question, if we were to say to ourselves, looking in the mirror, "Who are you?" And it came back, "I'm a child of God named Sandy." There isn't much more that's about it. And that's the whole definition. Then we're free from all those other things that were all just pure ego. And it's a wonderful process. So that's just a quick rundown on that, and we can get back now to the steps. For those of you ever new, we're talking about steps as a plan for living to replace your plan for living, which sucks. That was that's sort of as brief as I can put it. That's what this is all about. And if your plan for living is working that well, why in God's name are you here? You know what I mean? And so we have to admit that. We have to go, my plan isn't working that well. I'm throwing up, I'm locked up, nobody talks to me, I hate myself, I'm afraid, I'm angry, I'm resentful, blah, 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 but it probably just needs a little fine-tuning, And then we look at AA members. That's all. AA is one big show and tell operation. We got discussion meetings, speaker meetings, and we go around the room. Hi, I'm Joe, I'm Jane, I'm this. I used to be a prostitute, and now I own half of the hotels in Tampa. I used to be this, and now I'm that. And you start looking around, these people look healthy, their eyes are back in their heads, they're wearing clothes that fit, they have current registrations on their cars, and they have business cards with their names on them. So what do you see in AA? You see something that you want. That's what it is. It's a program of attraction. You just see this. These people are laughing at stuff that they ought to be ashamed of. They're laughing at all this stuff that I'm trying to hide. They must be free of all that. They're free of their past. They're free. They've achieved some sort of freedom, and they're running around just like they don't know any better. I see people that are hunting for jobs that are happy. Well, I can't find the job, but, I'm just having a great day today. I'm looking for a job, and I'm miserable, How could you be happy? And, what is that? And I've seen people dying of cancer, trying to help others. Well, come on over, I'll help you go through the steps. And you're going, gee, what the hell is this? And it's a tremendous inspiration to see this, so we're attracted to this. Well, how did you get that way? I got that way from these steps. So we get to see the results of the steps at meeting after meeting after meeting. And don't judge us when we're having a bad day and say the steps don't work. We all can be susceptible to falling back into being a complete, arrogant ass. Every one of us. If you could find us at the right moment, you'd go, you're a fine example for AA. You know what I mean? And I just hope they don't see me in those moments. But most of the time, we have been able to find something that really works a day at a time and enables us to be happy and sober. Happy and sober. And it starts out by surrendering, by saying, my plan does not work at all. I'm willing to put it over here, pick up your plan, and try it. And they said, fine, you're almost there because you've surrendered to that plan of yours. And what we're going to have you surrender to is a power that exists in the universe, goes by many names. You'll end up with your own name for it. That's irrelevant, what the name is of this higher power. What the steps are the means to get in contact with this spirit of the universe, whatever you want to call it. There is a connection inside of you that you were born with. You were born a mental, physical, and spiritual being. And this spiritual connection has been broken. It's never really been reestablished since you were born. Therefore, you've been totally dominated by your instinctual drives, and you've been trying to manage them with your intellect and your willpower, and you're exhausted, and you're tired, and you're wondering, what is this all about? And alcohol gave you a relief from that struggle, and it temporarily, night after night, gave you the illusion that everything was all right. But when you woke up the next morning, we were back in the same boat where life was too much for us. It overpowered us, and we were frightened, and we had no direction, and we had no sense of what's going on, and all the things that society told us were lies. It said if you got promoted to this, then you'll be happy. If you just became a mother, you'd be happy. If you just got married, if you got in perfect physical shape, you'd be happy. And you're out there busting your butt, and you have 1 ounce of extra fat or something, and you're still not happy. That didn't work. Well, if I just get to be the president of the company, so you skizzle everybody, you cheat and scam, and now you've ruined all their reputations, but you're the head of the company. And you go home at night, and you look in the mirror, and you go, ugh. So it doesn't work. And so I'm going to just give up. I'm going to take what these people are saying. They're saying if I'm willing to admit that I'm powerless over my life, I'm powerless over everything, and that everything's unmanageable, then I can walk through a door to a spiritual path that will take me to of spiritual awakening, a conscious contact with a higher power that will serve not only as a navigational beacon so that I can go through life with a guidance system, but will serve as an internal reassurance that everything's fine. And it comes from the inside out. There's an inner awareness, no matter what's going on, that everything's fine. So that's what the steps are for, to give you that personal experience so that inside of you, you have an awareness, man, everything's fine. It's real. It's not a pretend thing, which cool is. Cool is acting as though everything is fine. But inside, you're just going, oh my God, oh my God. Now, so if we surrender 100% in that first step, and then we come to believe that something can restore us to sanity, which is a major transition from our old beliefs. We have to get rid of childhood beliefs. We then are in a position to make a decision that this spiritual force is what we're going to join. It's like now you're going to raise your hand and join the Marine Corps. I solemnly swear, blah, 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 boom. And that's it. I am now going to throw my lot in with these principles. I am going to now totally rely on the guidance that I get from these meetings, from my sponsor, and I am just, it's finally, where a lot of times we get to the third step, it's like somebody who is standing on the shore of your old ideas, where you are relying on yourself and you have all these other things, and then here's this AA lifeboat that's been sent in to rescue you from your plan. And you got one foot on the shore and one foot in the boat. And they're trying to row you out to the big AA mothership. And you're trying to keep one foot over here because you've always been somebody who likes to keep your options open. You know what I mean? And so you're trying to keep that foot there, and they're trying to row, and you're going, God, I'm going to meetings, and I'm doing everything, and I don't know why it's not working. And they're going, get in the boat, you jerk! So we finally have to take that other foot. And boom, now we can't get back there. We have made a decision to get in that boat, and it's going to take us out somewhere. And we don't even know where it's going to take us. But we're in for the journey. That's a decision in that third step. Made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood Him. And last week we talked about fourth step where we made this inventory. We handed out these sheets. We're trying to find out, we talked about the fact that we were born with these instinctual drives for sex, security, and society. These are inside of everybody. As soon as you come out the chute, boom, 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 sex, security, society, boom. So, and everybody's the same, boom, 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 boom. And those are the drives that are inside of everybody. And as we become aware of them and they start really kicking in, we have to deal with them. And our intellect says, hey, these things, these drives are generating needs. I have all these needs. And I'm identifying these needs. And I'm going to psychiatrists. And I'm going to therapists. And I'm identifying needs all over the place. All I got to do is meet them. So we go out and try to meet these demands. And the problem is, we can supply more demands than we can ever meet. No matter how much we get, we can say, look, I'm your demand for money. I'm your little demand down here. This is the thing inside of me, okay? I'm your demand for money. You get $1 million, I'll leave you alone. Bang, bang, bank rob or whatever I have to do. I got the $1 million, it's in the bank, and the little demand goes, I was just bullshitting. It's actually $2 million. You know what I'm saying? So, and the sexual demand can do the same thing. Okay, I'll tell you the plan for the weekend. If you can pull this off this weekend, I'll shut up for a whole week. You will? Okay. And the same thing happened. I was just bullshitting. Going to have to get 3 more dogs. Okay. So these demands cannot be met. That's what we find out as we go through life. No matter what we achieve, it isn't enough. We still are not content. And so it says our problem has been we've been trying to live through our willpower of meeting these things. There's a flip side to this, and it's called spiritually reducing the demands down to where they're supposed to be, supplying us the normal energy to be human beings, but not being in charge of us. So when we turn our lives over to a higher power, we're talking about we want to be independent. And this is how we achieve independence, is by being dependent. Because it frees us from being controlled by these instinctual drives. So that's the point of this whole thing, is to allow a higher power to take these demands, quiet them, so that you're now free to be a spiritual being and go do what you really want to do, instead of being jerked around by these things that are telling you have to do this, you have to do that. And that was what that inventory was. What have these drives done to block me from my higher power? That's what we inventoried last week. And we're just looking in those categories. That's why we had resentments, we had fears, and we had the sexual relationships. Because those are the big categories of where we need to inventory in order to find out those things that are preventing us from being happy. It's got nothing to do with some church-oriented thing, that this will get you to heaven or this will get you here. This has to do with, until you get rid of these things, you're not going to be happy. And so, all right, I got that. So we write this all down. We really are painstaking. We go through this inventory, and we got these sheets all filled out, and we go, well, what do I do now? Well, now you admit to God, to yourself, and to another human being the exact nature of your wrongs. Every secret that you have, everything about you, you're going to share with yourself, with another human being, and with God. And you go, well, I like the myself part and I like the God part, but the other human being part seems extreme to me. Why can't I'm used to doing stuff alone anyway. Why can't it just be between me and God? That's what I think it ought to be, between me and God. And then you read in the 12 and 12, it says, people of very high spiritual development always insist on checking with each other the guidance they feel they got from God. Because we can end up, as Bill writes in 12 and 12, with the most errant nonsense that we interpret is coming from God. And it turns out it's our ego with a halo on, hiding over here. Son, what you ought to have is some wine. Thank you, God. I'm glad to hear that. And there's really nothing wrong with you. You're a victim. Don't inventory you, inventory them. So there's a lot of things that are going on that want us to not do this, especially the part about sharing with another human being. But on most lists, you'll find the word rationalization. You're going to find rationalization is part of being an alcoholic. We just rationalize the hell out of everything. Well, if we rationalize the hell out of everything, how do we know that list is worth anything? How do we know there is one word of truth on the list, if that's our specialty, rationalizing? So it turns out that there's a truth principle that is contained in the fifth step, and the truth principle is, it's impossible to see the truth about ourselves alone. It has to be run through another human being. That's how we see the truth about ourselves. It's been true since the beginning of time. Religions, psychologies, all philosophies have always talked about sharing with another human being in order to see ourselves. It is the real spiritual mirror that we can see. And it reminds me of like you get bitten by a poisonous snake, but you don't want to let anybody know there's anything wrong. You know what I mean? So you're trying to pretend nothing's wrong. People go, what's wrong? What's wrong? Nothing. I'm doing fine. You know, and you can feel your heart starting to seize and you're losing vision and all that. Well, we're filled with poison of these character defects. They're just filling us with this spiritual poison, and we're trying to pretend that we're all right because we don't want to go through the embarrassment of not being all right, of not saying, well, I got bitten by a snake, a poisonous snake, and I think I might die. And they go, oh, well, then come on in here. Here's the injection. How do you feel? Oh, a lot better. And you go, well, why didn't I go in there an hour ago? Well, I didn't want to let anybody know there was anything wrong with me. I don't want anybody messing in my life. I don't want this. I don't want that. So we have a great resistance to sharing with another human being. And I'm going to read, I think I'll do that now. There's a lot of promises in this step. And so if you're thinking about, well, why should I do this? Provided you hold back nothing, your sense of relief will mount from minute to minute. The dammed up emotions of years break out of their confinement and miraculously vanish as soon as they are exposed. As the pain subsides, a healing tranquility takes its place. And when humility and serenity are so combined, something else of great moment is apt to occur. Many an AA, once agnostic or atheist, tells us it was during this stage of step 5 he first actually felt the presence of God. And then out of the big book, once we have taken the step withholding nothing, we're delighted. We can look the world in the eye. We can be alone at perfect peace and ease. Our fears fall from us. We begin to feel the nearness of our Creator. We may have had certain spiritual beliefs, but now we begin to have a spiritual experience. The feeling the drink problem has disappeared will often come strongly. We feel we're on the broad highway walking hand in hand with the Spirit of the universe. So this is what they're talking about in terms of what is the likely results of doing a step 5. So a step 5 is one of the things to do is to decide who you're going to do it with. Some people might do it with their priest from a church or their minister. Some people might do it with their therapist. Some people might do it with their sponsor. It's getting more and more traditional to do it with your AA sponsor. Some people might use 2 people and share certain things over here and then certain things over here. And oddly enough, in the 12 and 12, Bill writes, and for some people, a stranger may be the best bet. I remember on airplanes opening up to people because I knew I'd never see them again. You know what I'm thinking of doing. But it suggested that we try to find someone who is understanding what we're trying to do. We're not trying to just talk a bunch of garbage. We're trying to stay sober. Be familiar with the program of Alcoholics Anonymous. Be familiar with spirituality and spiritual principles, and be a good listener who can give us some feedback by maybe telling some stories about himself or herself to make us feel more comfortable. Yeah, I know we all did something like that. When I was a kid, I did this and I did that. And suddenly we realized that we're just not very unique. And the only power that a secret has over us is the fact that it hasn't been told. And we say to ourselves, this secret is so awful, it can't be told. But then as soon as you tell it, you have to reclassify it. Well, actually, it couldn't have been that awful because it was just told. So I must have underestimated or overestimated it because I just told this horrible thing and he yawned. You know what I mean? He didn't pick up the phone and call the police or a reporter or anything. It was just... And so this is what is happening in the 5th step. And in 12 and 12, it talks about the fact that we will get rid of the sense of isolation that we all have. And the reason we have this isolation, we've never shared with anybody. We just are afraid to do that. We're afraid of, if anybody ever knew who I really was, they would never talk to me again. And so I am never going to do that. And people still don't talk to us because we're no fun to be around. They can tell that we're so uptight and controlling and all that. So it's a crazy thing. But that is one of the great promises that the 12 and 12 talks about. Another that it talks about is the ability to forgive and to be forgiven. As we look at these character defects and realize the universality of them, we realize that everybody, alcoholic or non-alcoholics, being jerked around by these same instinctual drives, which explains why people behave certain ways from time to time. And so we're able to go, well, God, I guess I could forgive them. And lo and behold, as we share this with someone else, and we realize that we're just the same as everybody else, we end up forgiving ourselves. This is where guilt takes a hike, is in the 5th step. It suddenly can just walk out the door, because I'm just the same as everybody else, and I'm free from this burden I've been carrying around all these years of these things that I said I was doing, and well, I can't tell anybody. I also have a view of the pattern of my behavior, and we'll get into this in the 10th step, so that I can see, or 8th step, 9th, and 10th, so I can see how I can now behave amongst my fellow human beings to create a situation of harmony rather than disharmony. We were experts at bringing out the worst in people. Keep them off balance. The best defense is a good offense. Boop-a-dee-boo. Set the house on fire, they won't see me stealing the booze. I mean, you know, that kind of stuff. You know, we just keep it moving. And now we can stop all that. We can just be free to be ourselves. And the last thing that comes out of this fifth step is our first taste of the power of humility. Because what we learn out of this fifth step is, there's a wonderful sentence in there. It says, after we take this inventory, and here's all these character defects, and Bill writes this great sentence, though recognized, they're still there. It's just, we know them all. We got them all on paper, and they're still there. They haven't moved a bit. So knowing all about them doesn't change a thing, just like knowing all about alcohol doesn't change a thing. We can't get rid of character defects on our own. That's the intellect and the willpower's problem. It always wants to do it on our own. Willpower says you could become spiritual on your own without a higher power if you really tried. I mean, what a ridiculous story that is. So that's what humility is saying. You know something? I can't improve myself in these areas all by myself. I can't. I'm powerless over these things. They have been yanking me around for 35 years. Or in my case, 37. Is that okay, Steve? So this is where humility comes in. I'm finally going to say, I need help to have all these changes take place. I cannot do them myself. And there goes the responsibility for doing them. We're going to do the legwork so that a higher power can remove these, but we cannot achieve that on our own. And that's what humility is all about. The allness of a higher power and the nothingness of myself. And that's what happens here as we take a look at this fifth step. So we summon up all our courage, we get a great, prepare ourselves for a long talk, and we sit down and we just start talking. And we start sharing stuff, and we start becoming a part of the human race for the first time. And whether we're giving or listening to a fifth step, the most important thing to do is to pray ahead of time and to just get as close as you can to your higher power so that you'll be guided in listening to this person. And you will find that you will intuitively have feedback that works perfectly. You can't prepare ahead of time. You will just be in an instrument. That's all you are when you're listening to a fifth step. You're an instrument of your higher power. And so you simply say, God, please make me an instrument. I want to help this man or this woman who's coming to see me. I want to be of service to them. So please make me a good instrument so that as they share, I will intuitively know the feedback that might be helpful to give to them. So all this is being done in a loving way so that we can get closer to our higher power. And both participants in the fifth step benefit immensely. We suddenly realize how much we love each other, how close we need each other, how for the rest of our lives we will always have someone to run stuff by. We'll never keep secrets again. Never will we be burdening ourselves with that kind of a 1,000-pound rock on the top of our shoulder walking around. Oh, I can't tell anybody this. We just call right up. Can I come over and talk to you about something? I did this yesterday. I can't believe it. And that's what it's doing. It's giving us a pattern for the rest of our lives in sobriety and AA. In our 10th step, where we'll talk about that later, we don't want to carry this stuff anymore. We want to get free from all these things you've been dragging around for our lives. And the fifth step is the doorway that we do it. It is 9:15. Stand in place. We'll say the Lord's Prayer and have some wonderful cake.